the amount of kid slaves that are coming over is alarming. These kids come over with an address written on their arm, and they have to ship them to these people. They're being traded into the, I can't even say the word on here. And what are they supposed to do with these kids? You can't send them back.
That's why I brought this up to you. It really disturbed me so much I called you on a Friday afternoon.
Two out of the three largest religious Facebook groups are ran by Russian bot farms.
This is a federally non-regulated industry. And so you have companies out there that don't look for your best intention, and they may come across as very professional and very glamorous with their representation. But to me, it's criminal. I got to go back and tell my wife this. Are you kidding me? There's got to be something I can do, right? I mean, it's awful.
That
It's
pisses
really,
me off
truly
so
awful.
bad.
Because if you don't, you never grow. You learn more and more about less and less until you know everything about nothing.
Welcome back, my friends. Thank you so much for tuning in to the mandatory meeting. I use the word mandatory because it really is important to stay up to date. You have to be aware of what's happening. We are approaching 100,000 subscribers. I'm doing a giveaway. Two people will be getting their names announced right before I jump out of an airplane. In celebration, I'm doing a 100,000 subscriber giveaway. I'll be announcing both winners right before I jump out of the plane. So I'll say the winners are, and as soon as I say Joe Blow's name, I'll jump out. I'll have a GoPro attached to my head. So you guys will see it. You'll be celebrating
Let's
winning
hope Joe
silver.
Blow's not the last thing that comes out of your mouth, man.
I mean, I thought of the most extreme way to do a giveaway, and unfortunately, that's what I came up with. You guys know Andy's from Miles Franklin. Right now, we have weekly specials every single Monday. Right now we have 1 ounce Palladium bars, $119 over spot. 1 ounce Gold Canby bars, $59 over spot. 1 ounce backdated maples, only $339 over spot. But we have a massive inventory with great prices. Slayer at Miles Franklin. I will make sure you guys are taken care of. Andy, welcome back. Is there anything you wanted to kick off with? I have a couple things I wanted to,
No, man,
to
I'll
touch
follow your
on.
lead.
So,
I'm sure it'll lead me into a lot of stuff, but go
well,
ahead.
so there was an interesting podcast. It was Dr. Phil with Joe Rogan, and he was talking a lot about the border crisis. He brought up two very serious points that I don't know if you've seen it or not, but
No, I've
he,
been meaning to. Actually, I saw a little tidbit about it yesterday, but I
yeah.
haven't seen it.
First, he shows this graph of the amount of Chinese people coming over that buy farmland right around nuclear sites. And it's not just three or four, it's hundreds upon hundreds. And it shows all by nuclear sites. And
And
like
by
you say,
military installments as
yeah,
well.
yeah. And if, like you say, 0.2%, it's very scary. So I want to get your thoughts on that, but also wanted to mention another even more scary point. He said that the amount of kid slaves that are coming over is alarming. These kids come over with an address written on their arm, and they have to ship them to these people. They're being traded into the, I can't even say the word on here. And what are they supposed to do with these kids? You can't send them back. These guys are buying kids and getting them shipped. They just come with an address. They can't speak English. Guys, the border have to send them there. What else are they going to do? And that was another disgusting and just terrible thing that came out of that. I highly recommend you guys watch that
Well, and it's
podcast.
interesting you bring that point up because someone who I care about a lot, one of the most well-read people I know, she just reads the wrong stuff. I said that to her at dinner not too long ago. I said, can you believe all the this influx of Chinese, fighting age males coming to the border with Toomey suitcases and clean jacket. Where the hell they come from? They didn't walk from Central America. They're flying here, and the amount is off the charts. Thousands and thousands and thousands of them over the last several months. And she said, "What are you talking about? I don't see that." So CNN doesn't show us these things, doesn't talk about these things, and so you have half of the country that is completely unaware of exactly what is happening. And you're right. When you talk about 12 million people entering the country illegally, 1% is 120,000 people. And one of my biggest concerns, and look, I've never sold gold, man, based upon fear, based upon selling things to make people or saying things to make people buy gold because we're doom and gloom and preying upon people's concerns. But I will tell you, when you have a massive BRICS meeting coming up in October with, 35 countries have already formally applied on top of the 10, and another 20 plus have informally applied. When you have an election, maybe the most important election in this country's history in November, and the BRICS meeting in October, what scares me the most would be a series of events, whether staged or real, to suggest some form of domestic terrorism over several locations at roughly the same time. You can bet dollars to donuts you'll see a state of national emergency be declared for the safety of the people. And then what does that do to the election? What does that do to our civil liberties, where people will always trade their freedoms for safety? You never get it back. And I think that it's a very scary thing that people need to understand is not doom and gloom. This is a country that has, in essence, opened up its borders to millions and millions of people that they have no idea who they are, what their intentions are, and why they're here. And when you look at the diverse locations that they all come from the Middle East to Africa to China, to Central and South America, it becomes very concerning. When you see this gal who was just murdered in Georgia, I believe, by a undocumented immigrant, when you see police officers beat up in Times Square in the middle of broad daylight by undocumented immigrants, this becomes a real problem. And then you take a look at the inner cities that have become lawless, and these sanctuary cities where, I mean, look, when you talk about how this all plays out, the worse it gets, the more people that keep coming in. We are watching the evisceration of the inner cities. And a good example would be like there's a building in Chicago called the Claiborne Corridor that just sold for $20 million. But in 2004, it was sold for $89 million. And so when you talk about it's losing, 75%, 78% of its value. It's like the Xerox building in Washington, D.C. The numbers are almost the same. You're watching the commercial real estate in these cities evaporate as the cities become too dangerous for the employees to want to come to, let alone the fact that they've all been working remotely. And then the businesses that sprung up around these big, corporate hubs where you have the Xerox building, there had to have been hundreds, if not thousands, of employees there. And so there are bars and restaurants that will spring up around it. Same thing in Chicago. And what we are seeing is this simultaneous evisceration of the cities, not only with the lawlessness and the lack of respect for police and authority. And where do you put all these people? How do you pay for them? How do you house them? How do you feed them? How do you school them? How about medical? Who's going to pay for all that? And then what happens to these cities who, all of a sudden these corporations say, we're not going to renew our lease. It's just not a good place for us to be. And they pull out. And now you have this giant vacuum of commercial real estate, which then begins to destroy all of the small businesses and bars and restaurants built up around it. It's like, go to any city where there's a big league ball club, and look at all the bars and restaurants that spring up around the stadium. And you pull that team away, and all of a sudden it turns into Omaha. And no disrespect to Omaha. All I'm just simply saying is it turns into a city where there isn't a place where thousands of people congregate, and then the benefit of all the businesses around it. They're all interrelated, and the border problem is as big as it gets. And it's a really, really big problem when you put into the context that we are broke, we are insolvent, we are losing our credibility around the world rather. And the lawlessness and the problems with immigration are only one problem. You have the election issues, you have the Justice Department issues. Is there a two-tier justice system? You have all of these woke individuals who are being hired in the highest levels of government based upon their gender or their sexual preference or whatever it is, instead of their merit, instead of their, I'll never forget having a discussion with my daughter many years ago, and her saying to me, it's not fair that my friend lives in this little apartment and my closet is bigger than her room and all this stuff. And I said, well, what you have in this country is equal opportunity. It shouldn't be equality for everyone. Everyone gets the same thing. It's everyone has the same opportunity. What do you make of that opportunity? And those opportunities, which should be merit based, are now out the window, and they're based upon a woke set of criteria that is leading us down the wrong path. And I'm very frightened for it. I'm very concerned about it. And I think ultimately it will manifest itself in much higher metal prices at the expense of the dollar. And so it's not something that we should all be wishing for, to see $400 an ounce silver. Yeah, triple digit silver. It sounds great, right? But be careful what you wish for in this context. In the world we all grew up in, yeah, it would be great. You could enjoy the fruits of your success. But in the world we are heading into, I would caution that $400 silver will come at the expense of people around you, businesses around you, institutions around you. It will come at the expense of a lot of things that this country stood for if we continue down this path. So I think things like that Dr. Phil interview, or the interview with Putin, these are important interviews to understand other sides of what is really happening and have a better understanding, because it's not just the open borders. Is what do the open borders have? What does it mean in a bigger context? And again, when you see all the people that are coming here, you have to ask yourself, is it a coincidence that all the farmland has been bought at or near nuclear sites or near military installations? Is it a coincidence that they're buying all the farmland, that they bought the largest pork producing company in the United States in South Dakota, that they just bought a huge gold mining company in Canada yesterday, that they're buying up all of the world's resources? This is a long game for the Chinese and for those entities that are investing in our country that are BRICS related, namely the Chinese. This is a long game, and it's something that should be taken very seriously.
It's too much to process, and I feel like that's what a lot of Americans are feeling. And there was a interesting, very interesting article I covered 2 days ago. This guy did a study. The article is titled "The Need for Chaos." He's talking about these people that want, or most of Americans want, chaos to ensue, to almost tear down the system, even though there might not be anything in replace. And they tell these people, even if you're on the left or the right, or you're pushing out stuff that is completely wrong or misleading, they didn't even care, because they just hate the system. And it was this whole study that he did, and the numbers, the statistics were insane. Like it was such a crazy article. But another thing that I wanted to cover before I forget is the stuff we talked about on the phone the other day. You called me and you said, hey, you have a client or someone, and you saw his portfolio, and it was something that you wanted us to talk about on this podcast because it is very serious, and it's something that I think is extremely overlooked. So if you wanted to mention that, I feel like we should definitely bring that to the surface.
Yeah, one of the things that I'm a big advocate of, when you have a platform and you speak publicly, that you do so with decorum, that you do so with class and respect. And I will not mention the name of the company as much as I would like to, because that's not who I am. And I don't believe on elevating myself by stepping on others. But I will tell you, as God is my witness, that it is a very big sore spot with me. Companies that are in essence using the fact that this industry is federally non-regulated. And by the way, that's why I left my corporate office in Minneapolis, even though I moved to Florida 3 years ago, where we've had a satellite office for almost 2 decades, because Minnesota is the only state that holds us and any metals company either selling into the state or domiciled in the state, holds us holds us accountable for our actions. It's the only state where you have to be licensed and bonded and background checked annually to maintain a metals license. And this federally non-regulated industry allows companies to push the envelope to the nth degree, disseminating half-truths and really harming people. And a lot of it has to centers around the IRAs. Most of it does. The companies that specifically speak to IRA purchases are doing some very awful things. And if the owner of these companies were sitting in front of me, I would debate him wide open in front of the whole world to see, and he would lose. This particular client had bought quarter ounce gold coins for $900 a piece. And in my career, which is 34 years, I've never sold a quarter ounce bullion coin for $900 a piece. That would put it at $3,600 melt value. They were buying 1 ounce silver coins for almost $60 a piece. And all of these coins were coins that, I do this every day and have been since I was 19 years old. And when I Google these coins, I say, oh, okay, I know who the mint is. The mints can be very reputable, but the coins themselves, I don't know what the hell they are. And that should say something. I've been doing this for 34 years and done 10 billion in sales nearly, and I don't know what the hell these coins are, but they're being sold under the guise of being special. And I want people to know that whenever I sell coins, look, if I had my druthers, I would buy nothing but pre-1933 gold coins and Morgan dollars and peace dollars. I understand them. I've been doing this for 3.5 decades. I understand what numismatics are, but to me, numismatics are pre-1933 US period, like the coins behind me. Those are true pieces of Americana. What these dealers are doing is that they're selling modern minted coins, most of them fractional in weight, half ounce, quarter ounce, 1.5 ounces, 3/4 of an ounce, whatever. And they're being sold under the guise of, no, this is what you want. The potential is amazing. They're limited edition, the American Eagle and the gold bullion buffalo. And, those are just common coins. You don't want those. And even some will talk about confiscation, how these special numismatic brand new coins are safe. Bullshit. They're not safe from confiscation. A desperate government will do desperate things. Pre-1933 coins were written into legislation as being collectible. And the executive order that talked about gold confiscation said coins minted prior to 1933 would be exempt. And it was dentists, jewelers, and coin collectors of pre-33 gold that would have been given the exemption. And who knows if that would even stand up. That's why a lot of people bought the pre-33 stuff. I bought it for the first 20 years of my career because it was nearly the same price as gold bullion, and you had better upside potential. The confiscatory side of things, that was okay, cool. That's an added bonus, but that is never really why I bought it. But what is happening is that these companies are selling modern minted quarter ounce gold coins at levels that these people will never get their money out of them. And they are being lied to as the rationale for it. These are very big companies that are using, in many cases, company spokesmen, wealthy individuals or public figures that are well known to speak about the merits of these companies. At the same time, they are literally pillaging their clients. And I do damage control with a lot of these people, and I'm horrified by what I see. And the thing of it is if the CEO of these companies were sitting right here in front of me and he wasn't lying through his teeth, he would, and I said, if this was your mom and dad, how would you feel about it? And he would look me in the face and say, you're right, but I can get away with it. And all I'm simply saying to you is this, that for everyone out there, when you're buying gold and silver coins, whether it be in an IRA or outside of an IRA, you think of a vanilla hot fudge sundae. You start, unless you're 6 years old, and fill a bowl with sprinkles and cherries and hot fudge, and then a little scoop of ice cream is kind of what they're talking about, except the sprinkles are rancid as far as I'm concerned. And the hot fudge, it's old. And it's really not good anymore. And even if you think this is something rare, it ain't, because if I don't know what it is, and I'm going to bid melt value on the damn thing, well, then it's, or even behind melt value, because there's something in this industry called the cost of carry. And if this is a gold coin that no one knows what it is, and it sits on my shelf forever, I bought it from someone, it sits on my shelf, and none of my people sell it, no one asks for it, it just sits there and collects dust, that's cost of carry. And so we would then bid right behind spot, 99.5%, melt it down or sell it to someone who wants it. The point of it is that these companies are destroying people's lives, mostly through IRAs at a time in their life when they can't get that money back. And they are being told this is the thing to do for bogus reasons, whether it be profit potential or confiscation. It's all a bunch of bullshit. And there are people being really, 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 really hurt. So what do? You buy a bowl of vanilla ice cream, American Eagles, Canadian Maple Leafs, 1 ounce gold bars, 1 ounce silver rounds, 1 ounce silver Eagles, 1 ounce silver maples. And that's it. I mean, you can do kangaroos and philharmonics, but nothing rare, nothing esoteric, nothing goofy, nothing where if you look up that coin that they're recommending and Google it, and it doesn't pop up on every other company's website in the country, It's bullshit, and it's going to harm you. And when you're paying $800 or $900 for a quarter ounce coin, gold coin, when the price of gold is $2,050, let's say, it's I can sell you a brand new gold quarter ounce gold eagle, which have high premiums for for $1,000 an ounce less, or $250 less per coin than what these people are paying, or way more than actually. I mean, I'm doing off the top of my head, but you're talking, no, it would be roughly, let me just look. If it's more than 560, $70, and it's too much. And these people are paying $900 for a quarter ounce coin I've never heard of, or $60 for a 1 ounce silver coin, or 90 or 110 for a 2 ounce silver coin. And all of this stuff is goofy stuff I've never heard of that are being sold by companies that pose as being very reputable and are destroying people's futures. And I mean that. And I'm not being bitter. And I'm not saying this to talk my book or to get you to call me. I'm just simply saying, if you are talking to companies that primarily focus on IRAs, and this is the path they lead you down, or into proof coins, you are being led down a very dark alley in a very bad neighborhood with some very bad people. And there ain't anyone there to help you when you fall. You can contact us. We will give you a non-obligatory assessment. We'll tell you what you got, and we'll be straight with you. And I don't say this to get into fights with other companies, so I'm not mentioning their names. I mean, you can go to the Washington Post, and there's an article that they wrote not too long ago that lists names of several of these companies who are under investigation. Many of them who will sell under one name, they get in big trouble, pay a fine, and then open up under another name, very close to it, but different. And, I just want people to understand that when we sell metals, it is about selling wealth, not potential. You want potential, you want some cherries and some hot fudge, fine. Buy pre-1933 US gold coins, period. Do not buy the modern minted anything, any story, don't do it. You will not get your money out of it. Chances are you're being ripped off. And here's the truth of it. The truth of it is, and now that you've been in this industry with me a little bit, you will know what I'm saying to be true, is that this is an industry where markups are minuscule. And the way that you succeed and become successful is to do a crap load of business. And if you don't do a crap load of business, then you need to make up a story, and a story that allows you to sell things at much higher markups than we would ever do. And I find it to be deplorable. I mark things up just a few percent. These companies are marking things up hundreds of percent, where the people, most of them elderly, are screwed. Period. Will be screwed and will never get their money back until gold and silver go above $50 an ounce and above 3,000-4,000 an ounce before it starts to really make sense. And in that environment, no one's going to give a crap what the design is on your coin. And that's why I say buy gold American Eagles, by gold American buffaloes, by silver American eagles, Canadian maple leafs, Australian kangaroos, South African Krugerrands. 1 ounce, nothing proof, nothing special. Now, if you want to get some fractional coins, let it be a very small portion of your holdings. 90%, 80% 1 ounce, 10 or 20% fractional, 1/10, 1/4, 1/2. Nothing proof, nothing proof. And you'll be okay. It's these companies that are saying that recommendation that I just made is a bad one, are the ones that are full of shit, and they're the ones that are harming you. And if you opened up my vaults around the country where I have things stored in Brinks, you would see everything I am saying to you is what I own. I would rather own something that like that. Everyone I talk to, yeah, I'll buy it, I'll take it. Here's what it's worth. Boom. And you're calling me the owner of a company that's done almost 10 billion in sales for 34 years, and I have no idea what the hell these coins are. I Google them and find out what mint it is. And then like, oh, okay, well, I see why they're making a story, because no one carries this stuff, so it must be a special story. It's not. It's just being industrious as a criminal. It's being devious, and it's being unethical, and I call it criminal. It is criminal in my mind, because the story that they are putting forth to these people, when these people really find out what it is that they own, are very often, destitute and embarrassed and humiliated, and in some cases destroyed. And I don't mean to be dramatic, and this is real, and I keep seeing it. And I just want people to know, if you found yourself in this dilemma, you can give us a call. We'll tell you what we would do. and will tell you what it's really worth. And I will be completely transparent. And any company that's doing this that would like to challenge me on this publicly on your show, I'm more than welcome to do it in a respectful manner, and respectful enough where I didn't mention the names of the companies, and I have their statements right here. I could show everyone the name of the companies. There's two or three I can show you right now, but I won't, because I'm respectful and do it the right way. But they know who they are, and it's just flat out wrong. And I ask every one of them who work for these companies, if this is your mom or dad, how would you feel? It's easy to do it to someone you can't see, but if it's mom or dad or grandma or grandpa, then what? And it's just flat out freaking wrong. So sorry to ramble. It is really anything that puts a very big dark circle black eye on this industry bothers me. I've worked for 34 years to maintain a good image and take care of people and build a business where people want to come back and work with us again by treating people fairly and being candid and being transparent. And everything that these companies are doing is the opposite. It is not candid. It is not transparent. It's not truthful. And if it is truthful, it's truthful halfway, where they say, certain things are like, for example, if you buy a British sovereign, it's safe from confiscation because it's pre-1933. Bullshit. The executive order says pre-1933 US minted. So when we talk about half truths, when we talk about, oh, and by the way, those British sovereigns shouldn't be sold for more than just a few percent over their melt value, not 90, 100, $200 over. This is what is happening. And it really is something that disturbs me to my core. So I'm glad that you gave me the platform to do this and to ramble, because if it's your mom or your grandfather, it would be a whole hell of a lot worse than just trying to alert people to the truth of what's happening.
Wow. Yeah, that's exact. I just made a video 2 days ago titled "A Cautionary Warning About Silver," explaining this exact same thing. I always tell people, before you buy that coin, think about how you'll be able to sell it.
That's the
And
best advice you can give someone, because liquidity is never factored in enough. And people in this industry, I don't mean to interrupt you, but I want to hammer that point home, because people in this industry tend to be penny wise and pound foolish. And when you talk about liquidity is really very important. You can have the greatest thing in the world, but in the end, if it's something that's not demanded or desired, how great really is it? You're living the entire time you own it under false assumptions that can put you in a very compromised position. So that is the best advice that you can take from this interview, is when you buy something, think of how easy it will be to sell something. And it's like a can of Coca-Cola. Anyone who's eaten a hamburger that's thirsty will like to take that can. But if it's some can of soda from Zimbabwe that no one's ever heard of, but it's rare and it's really special, well, great. But I'll pass. I'll drink some water. Thanks. I'm not trying to be goofball here. I'm just saying that really is very important.
yeah, I really do recommend people go watch that video. Like, I took my time on it. The first 5 years of my channel, this is all I talked about. But as I got more into economics and more into geopolitics, I kind of switched my content. But as I'm writing my book, I got back into this subject, and it brought back that love, that passion, because that's really like where my roots are. So I wanted to start making video. They don't get as many views, but it's not always about the views.
But there are
But yeah,
people who come to your channel that haven't been following you forever, that are
yeah,
coming here looking for information. And, if you've ever played sports like golf and you're having a hard time, you're slicing the ball, or you're hooking the ball, or you're topping the ball. Or, I used to play some really high level softball back in the day. And if you're having a hard time, driving the ball or staying down when you're fielding it, the first thing a coach will tell you is go back to basics. Go back to basics. Let's go back and, forget about what you're trying to do and go back to the basics. Well, you need to go back to the basics sometimes. And that's admirable. And I think that it's good that you do that, because not everyone, one of the mistakes that people like you and I can easily make is assuming that everyone has the same base of knowledge and understanding as we do, and many don't. And we're not born with this innate knowledge. And so going back to the basics and talking to people about the do's and the don'ts, because let me tell you, I'm talking to people every single day lately. That's why I brought this up to you. It really disturbed me so much. I called you on a Friday afternoon to say, this is really bugging me. We need to talk about this, because I kept watching, and it's like calling these people back. I want to do as bad as I want another hole in my head, because it's like when you call someone and say, yeah, you got royally f***ed, by the way, and yeah, I know you think you have $800,000, but it might be worth 375. And to feel that anguish and embarrassment and humiliation, and I got to go back and tell my wife this. Are you kidding me? I mean, there's got to be something I can do, right? I mean, it's awful.
That
It's
pisses
really,
me off
truly
so
awful.
bad. Especially like my clients are my subscribers, my fans. So I have a personal, this is why, see, here's the thing. If you buy from some random site online, you don't know who that person's name is. They don't know who you are. There's no personal connection. If there was a problem, you're talking to their customer service team. With us, you can call me. I will fix it. If I can't, Andy will. He said a word, damage control. This is why, and it's not even about making money. I can offer you guys a safe place to buy. I'm not trying to say this to put money in my pocket. It's because of shit like Andy's saying.
And I know this about you, and that's why, I'm several years your senior, and the minute I talked with you, I knew that you were the kind of person I wanted to associate with, because relationships are very important, and it's something that this, as more technologies come into play, that we've gone away from, but I never have. And my clients will tell you that I answer their cell phone calls, I answer their texts, and because where we're heading in this world, relationships go a long way. And I know that I've entrusted my business with you, to where the point I know that you will represent it the right way. And that's important. And that means something. And I don't think you ever realize how big that is until you have a problem. And when you
Mm,
have a problem and someone answers the phone and says, I'm going to make this right, don't worry, versus having to leave an email or a voicemail and hope someone gets back to you promptly as your anxiety level grows and grows and grows. That's what one of the things that we're very good at. And that's why I knew you'd want to talk about this, well, because you do care, and so do I. And people who don't care are short-sighted in life and in business, and they have very poor careers and very poor relationships, not just business, but also personally. And when you care, it goes a long way to show the character of the person that you are, which is everything. And in a world where that kind of thing has been forgotten a little bit. Everything is so impersonal and cold, and text and email and voicemail. And, I think it goes a long way to say, yeah, I work with them, and he'll watch this. He'll answer if I call him, and you know what? He'll take care of me. And if not, he'll call me right back. And if there's a problem, we'll make it right. And so I'm glad you said that
yeah.
as well.
I've had people email me about problems and I'll send them to I'll let you know about it. I'll send them to you. They email me back a couple days later thanking me. It warms my heart, man, because like I care about my subscribers so much, and that's why this stuff really does, you know, bug me sometimes. And like you're saying, I could have I could think that my PF70 Ultra Cameo Moon Festival Panda is worth $300, but is it really worth $300 if no one's willing to buy it?
That's the point. The price guides may say that. And I built a world-class baseball card collection through my business for years. I used to put in the newsletter, when we wrote a newsletter, if you own baseball cards, I'll buy them. And I would have baseball cards sent into my office. I'd have them boxes up to my ceiling. I became a power seller on eBay. I built a collection that I always dreamed of having, Babe Ruths and Cy Youngs and Ty Cobbs and Mickey Mantles, all of them. And they're right there and
That's
right
awesome.
there. And so, but I learned you can have a Don Drysdale Hall of Fame pitcher rookie card, and the price guide say it's worth $5,000. You won't find anyone who wants to pay more than 2,000 for it, because they don't want it. And that's what I mean by, if it's a Babe Ruth or it's a Mickey Mantle, it will have demand no matter what, always, anywhere, and higher than the price books. But when you get into things that are fringe and esoteric, regardless of what the price guides say, what's it really worth when the chips are down? And so another good point you're bringing up, and you want to buy things. And again, thinking of your liquidity on the backside. And I realized through baseball cards, there's a handful of baseball players: Mickey Mantle, Babe Ruth, Hank Aaron, Willie Mays, Sandy Koufax, Cy Young, Ty Cobb, Lou Gehrig, Joe DiMaggio. Those will bang, immediately liquid anywhere in the country. The rest of them, price guides will say this, but good luck finding anyone to buy it. Maybe you will on eBay, don't know. But that's what we're trying to get across here. Stick with the Babe Ruth, stick with the Coca-Cola, stick with the Budweiser, stick with things in gold and silver that everyone wants for the ice cream, the vanilla ice cream of your sundae. There ain't nothing wrong with having the Moon Festival Panda as the sprinkle or the cherry or the hot fudge on top, but it should damn well not be the vanilla ice cream. And that's
Right.
kind of what I'm getting at here. And there is no protocol or set criteria for success that people have to follow. But ask yourself, what is your motivation? Are you buying moonbeam pandas to protect you if the shit hits the fan
Nope.
and all hell breaks loose? Or are you buying it because maybe we'll pull out of this and owning gold and silver at higher prices, it will be profitable. Great, cool. But most people are buying metal from us because they're concerned about the state of the economy, the state of the dollar, the state of geopolitical events, political events. Everything is bothering them. And in that event, you're buying gold and silver because it is wealth, not to get wealthy. And in that respect, you want it to be plain Jane vanilla ice cream so that everyone will understand it and want it when you need to sell it and never be put into a compromised position.
Man, I love this conversation, man. I haven't had a combo like this with another person so long. It's always me just talking to the camera. It's exactly right. Like my Moon Festival Panda, I'm probably going to be buried with that thing. It's sentimental value. That's not a coin I'm investing into. In the word investment, I guess I could use if it were one day were to be profitable, but it's not an investment. If you're looking at gold and silver for, or let's say silver is a better example for its intrinsic value as the most highly conductive metal, you're going to be investing into or putting your fake money into that because of its metal content, not because how pretty that coin is or how rare it is. That's the wrong idea. You can do that if you want. On like I tell some people, you can buy what you like. At the end of the day, at least you like it. If the price goes down or whatever the condition, which is a whole other subject, condition. If you're going to buy more, semi-numismatic coins, condition matters because you could have a PF70 or an MS70 coin, but if it gets a milk spot, you better bust it out of that cap,
Now,
the
what you just
slab.
said right there, MS70, PF70, and milk spot. I know all three of those terms. Milk spot is a little cloudy thing on the
Yep.
image or a cloudy mark on the coin. PF stands for proof. 70 is the
Right.
highest grade you can do. MS is mint state, highest grade of
Yep.
circulated versus proof or commercial strike versus proof. But here again, 80% of people listening to this
Oh,
might not even know what that means. And
yeah.
that's the point, is that
Yeah.
for these companies to say this to a guy like you or me, we'd understand what we were
Yeah.
getting
Just
into. But
laugh
the
in their
public thinks that they're buying the right thing to protect them and finds out that they've been fleeced after it's too late. And that's the truth. This is not
Yeah.
hyperbole. This is not being
Yeah.
overly dramatic. This is not bullshit. This is real, and it's happening all over the place. And the more I see of it, the more upset it gets me. And these companies that are paying huge advertising budgets or paying company spokesmen huge amounts of money every month, thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars every month to promote them. It's not a very flattering uh, representation of these people's characters. And I wonder if they really even know what is going on.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you that, you know, if that isn't enough indication of the kind of companies that I'm talking about, I can't get any more clear than that. So do your due diligence, and especially as it pertains to IRAs. Um, in an IRA, you can own just about anything that is 24 karat or better. The American Eagle has an ounce of 24 karat gold in it, but it has a tenth of an ounce of alloy added to it to the decreases the purity of 22 karat, but it is still allowed in IRAs. It doesn't need to be a proof American Eagle, commercial strike, but eagles, buffaloes, maple leafs, kangaroos, philharmonics, silver Krugerrands, not gold, because gold are not 24 karat. And they're not exempt like the American Eagles are. Gold bars, silver bars, as long as they're NYMEX or COMEX approved. All of that works. So you can put pandas in an IRA. But again, if you're going to buy pandas, buy commercial strike, non-MS70, proof 70, none of that nonsense.
Yeah.
If you want pandas, fine, put them in your IRA,
Right.
buy commercial strike. They should be right around the same price as gold eagles. So all of these things are acceptable, and anyone who tells you otherwise is not being straight with you. And these
Right.
are the things that, if you have questions, reach out to us and send an email to Slayer at Miles Franklin and ask. He knows
Yeah.
what he's talking about and understands the do's and the don'ts, and
Yeah.
will tell you. And that's why I'm so proud to be associated with you, is because you will do the right thing
Yeah, I
And that's
have
the most
to.
important thing in the end.
I wouldn't be able to sleep at night. There's a saying that I tell a lot of beginners: pay for the coin, not the slab. Pay for the coin, not the slab. Don't that
Well,
a
and
lot
that's and
and
what I would say similar to that when you're buying a commodity, buy the man or the company, not the commodity. And so again, if you were going to I won't even go down that road. I'll just simply say you buy the reputation, you buy the person. When you're talking about a commodity that is homogenous, meaning it's the same from one dealer to the next, what is the rationale? Yeah, in the end, we're all going to be in the same ballpark in pricing, really close, one way or the other. And there's always wiggle room if need be, but what you're really buying is the person, is someone who will be there when you need them in good times, in stressful times. And if there's a problem, we'll make it right promptly. And that's something that I can always promise as the owner of Miles Franklin, that is a mission number one, and we make mistakes. We also make it right, but we
oh
never
yeah.
overcharge and we never sell people things that we don't own ourselves, ever, never.
Yeah, I've made a lot of friends that I talk to still every day. I got a guy, told him I'll be done it, whatever, we just call him. We just talk, just talk. But this one lady, she's so sweet. She talked about this terrible story that happened to her. Um something about, her package got lost or something and she got ripped off. Like they didn't refund her, they didn't care. And it just like it hurt because you could tell she's, she's so sweet. And it's just like I'm saying this more for their sake, not mine. Like when I say like subscribe to my channel, it's not for my sake, it's for your own, because I bust my ass to give content that helps people. But I really want people to be safe. And I'm so glad you brought this up, because that is something that's not talked about much, is how much people do get ripped off or scammed or taken advantage of. And it is people that are uneducated or not even just that are vulnerable or might not have the
You'll
same.
notice that none of these companies who are being unfair to the public don't have a presence online like I do, or Money Metal, Stefan, great guy doing a lot for this industry. He's very well known out there. He's a fair guy. You look at all of these companies that have company spokesmen. It's not the owner of the company who's going up there, who could very quickly be destroyed online reputation, or who your entire existence is on giving right information, and very quickly your comment section would blow you up if you were anything other than honest. So we don't need to beat this horse into the ground, but I think it's important for people to understand that this is a federally non-regulated industry. And so you have companies out there that don't look for your best intention, and they may come across as very professional and very glamorous with their representation, but to me, it's criminal what's happening, and I wish there was a way for me to put a stop to it. I can't. I can just tell people to be more aware and once it becomes public information, I'm happy to mention it. But just go to the Washington Post, and I'll tell you what people can Google to see an example of this in the Washington Post. So you can see some of the companies in this article, which is public information, that are screwing people. And you can Google the Washington Post. It's called How Right-Wing News Powers the Gold IRA Industry in the Washington Post. Google it. See for yourself. And these are some of the companies that are doing what I'm talking about. So in any case, yeah, that's all I got on that subject.
Yeah.
Anything else you want to chat about today?
uh I just wanted to ask, is there anything about bricks, any updates or anything that you wanted to mention or that's come to light since last time we talked?
Well, yeah. Let's see here. As far as the bricks are concerned, there is. We have. They just talked about issuing a new, as they call it, BRICS Bridge, I believe it is called. Give me one moment. I took down some notes here before we chatted. I'll read it to you right here. Russia will promote the topic of improving the BRICS settlement and payment system and is ready to test payments in digital currencies with China, the Eurasian Economic Union, and the Gulf countries Russian Finance Minister Anton Silanov told Sputnik. It is proposed creating a platform that would connect the financial systems of its participants. For example, technological gateways for settlements in digital currencies of central banks are already in operation. And that's like the M-Bridge, Project M-Bridge, which was developed between China and I want to say Singapore and the UAE. And they've been using M-Bridge recently to trade back and forth. It is a gateway that allows these countries to trade their currencies, their central bank digital currencies, free from the SWIFT system. And it says, we propose creating a BRICS bridge, which based on the BRICS institutions would be available to our countries and would ensure the proper level of equality and would contribute to the development of trade relations. We are ready to start with countries that express such a desire, perhaps with China, perhaps with our neighbors in the EAEU, with the countries of the Persian Gulf, the minister added. He says, Russian minister also said that the possibility of a common unit of account and currency similar to the euro, said that the currency could work as an alternative to the US dollar, can be used to denote some of the commodities. This unit of account for the BRICS member countries, not a single like the EU euro, but an alternative to the dollar in which the cost of commodity deliveries can be denoted, as well as benchmarks for some goods. So it is not to depend on the single currency or issuing center that issues banknotes in a no one knows how manner, he said. So basically what you're talking about is all of these currencies are, see, everyone fixates on the common settlement currency, and that will happen. There will be one, and it will be tied to gold some way or somehow because it is the only other tier one asset, and all of these central banks are buying it. But what you're seeing here is all of the BRICS countries will have a gateway to not use SWIFT. They can trade with one another for oil or for energy or for rare earth metals or for wheat or for soybeans or whatever the hell it is. Like, Brazil is the second largest exporter of corn in the world, and they're selling their corn and their soybeans to China for yuan, which is then immediately convertible into gold on the Shanghai Gold Exchange. And they will use these bridge systems to trade their currencies, whether it be digital real or digital yuan, into the commodities or whatever it is that they're buying, and then they will sidestep the SWIFT system and settle outside the dollar. So all of this settlement being done outside the dollar has tremendous impact on the value of the dollar. And then instead of buying treasuries with all of their excess cash, as they've done for 50 years, they will buy gold, which they've been doing. And you can see that treasury holdings of these countries is falling off a cliff. Gold issuance is going straight to the moon, and they're using the suppression of the Western market to do this. But understand that if you go back for 25 years, gold, if you take the total gain and divide it by 25, it has averaged almost 8% per year without the geopolitical risk, without the sanction or confiscation risk, without the default risk. And when you look at the performance of the bond market, it's been half of that or less, much less. And then, of course, last year being the most volatile year for the 10-year Treasury ever, where in 45 years it was more volatile than the price of gold. So what these countries are doing is trading with one another through a new system. It was first the M-Bridge, but now they're talking using that technology for a BRICS bridge, where all of these countries can trade with one another in their local currencies, put the excess reserves into gold instead of U.S. treasuries. And if you realize that has a tremendous impact, not only on the settlement status of the dollar, but the reserve status, because the bond market, there are no buyers at these levels. They'll have to jack rates way up to get people to buy it. And if not, the Federal Reserve will be the buyer of last resort, which is monetization of the bond market, which is the road to hyperinflation. And so this is a way to have a tremendous and profound impact on the dollar, even before they issue a standard settlement currency. But I also want to say one other thing. People talk about the dollar has to go to get crushed before gold and silver go higher. Now, I don't have the numbers in front of me with silver, but with gold, right now, the dollar is where it was in 2015. It's almost exactly where it was, right around 104, somewhere in that neighborhood. And that's when gold made its low. Now, since then, the dollar is up roughly 5% from that point, and gold has doubled. So as the dollar has only, gone up 5%, gold has doubled. Now, what happens if the dollar gets clobbered and starts to fall fast? You'll see gold and silver slingshot. And this is why you're seeing 55% of all the COMEX gold taken off the market since February of 2021. And I guess I would leave people with two things. One, we've seen gold rise in our currency despite positive real rates, even though the information on the rates is a lie, as is, the inflation numbers are a lie, but we'll use the CPI numbers and say 5% minus the 3% inflation puts it at a 2% real rate. When gold is rising in the face of positive real rates, that is saying that you keep rates here or they go higher, your government's going to have real problems with debt if rates remain positive. But I want people to know all of these things that we are doing, that the hegemony of the US dollar is based upon confidence. And what will this empire be when the world loses confidence with this system? And I would argue in many respects they already have. So this is a trust-based, confidence-based system. When you go around stealing people's reserves or assets and then actually having Janet Yellen in Brazil speaking, urging the European Union and the US to not just use the sanctioned assets, hold them, but to actually use them to rebuild the Ukraine. It's a joke. It's absolutely a joke. And there is no coincidence that you had BRICS calling in Brazil, President of Brazil calling for a BRICS meeting here in Brazil right away to talk about global finances, right after our knucklehead Secretary of Treasury is telling the world that these assets need to be confiscated. Confiscated, she says. I mean, it's about the dumbest thing that you could do. And at least we have Nancy Pelosi looking out for us. She bought 1.25 million worth of Palo Alto Networks calls for $1.25 million. And of course, it's gone way up. Obviously it's just a coincidence. And it's just a coincidence that you see, Jamie Dimon, who bought 1.235 million shares in the open market of JP Morgan from 2009 to 2016. When the market bottomed, last week he just sold almost 822,000 shares at the top for 150 million. Is it impeccable timing? Is it impeccable timing when Bezos and Zuckerberg and all of these insiders are selling and building bunkers? Is all of this stuff coincidental? And I would say it's not, and not even a little bit. And then you see the information coming out of the Bureau of Labor Statistics. For 4 months in a row, they've revised down the consumer confidence numbers. But the last time, the January numbers were really high, and then the market went nuts on it, right? And then all of a sudden they revise it down to the biggest revision downward since 2022, and it is a massive revision downward. And we're revising them downward. They say it a month or two after the fact, after the economic impact is severe upward, like the market goes nuts because evidently the consumer confidence is through the roof, but now it's actually negative. Sorry, we were wrong. Point I'm getting at is we're being lied to by the Bureau of Labor Statistics. We're being lied to by our politicians. We're being lied to all over the place. And what is happening in BRICS, these people who are dollar bulls, who live on recency bias and normalcy bias, are in for a very, very big rude awakening. And as China continues to gobble up the world, they just bought Yintai Gold on Sunday, a Canadian gold exploration company. Yintai Gold just bought Osino Resources, exploration company in Canada, for $273 million in cash. They're doing this all over the place. Last year, they were buying up all of the copper companies in Canada. They're buying the farmland in the United States. They're buying gold and silver mines all around Central America, South America, and Africa, and oil refineries and oil reserves, and striking deals to build all of that stuff, to bring those natural resources to the market and industrialize these countries. They are building a very, very formidable infrastructure. And people need to understand that this is not stopping, it is accelerating. It is really, really accelerating. And I will just simply leave everyone with that one thought that we've said over and over and over and over again, and that is 200 meetings between now and October, all BRICS related, in Russia, the big one in October, an election in November, and 12 million people in this country illegally right now. If 1/10 of 1% want to do harm to this country, that's 12,000 people. This is something that should be taken very seriously. This is why you buy gold and silver. It is not to get rich. It's because the things that are confronting us in this country and outside this country are things that none of us have had to worry about our entire lives. And now it's time to get real and to just blow by it and look past it is a mistake, because everything we're talking about and have been for the last year, you and I, is accelerating at breakneck speed. But if you didn't dig a little deeper, you'd never find it, right? Because the mainstream says consumer confidence is through the roof. Everything is great. Oh, by the way, we just wickedly revised that negative. But sorry, we didn't tell you when it mattered. And sorry, we whispered it so no one knows this. But just like the employment numbers that were so great, but for 2023, 440,000 jobs were revised downward, or 40% of those jobs supposedly created in this great economy in 2023. We were wrong, but they didn't tell us that until almost February, after the 2023 numbers had already played out. And who really even noticed it, right? So I hate to be a buzzkill, because that's not who I am. But I think it's this whole everything is getting to the point where I'll just simply leave you with this last thought, man, and that is that wisdom is seeing things for what they really are, not for what people say they are. And I respect you very much for having the courage to say this, the same things that I'm talking about, and to tell people what's really happening, and then let them make up their minds for themselves. That's what the whole purpose of this conversation was today, is to tell people the truth, not what they're being told, but what really is, and then go out and make up your own mind based upon your own due diligence. Just don't rely on someone, even like myself, to tell you what is truth. Listen to what people say, and then go out and do a little bit of digging and find out for yourself.
That's exactly how I always felt as well. You know, like, I'm a realist. I always try to speak the truth, but I still tell people, you know, go do your homework. But if you are going to do your homework, make sure you get the answers correct as well, because like we always talk about, like North Korea and all these other countries, their media is heavily censored, a lot more than I think people realize. Now, there is all-time lows for people trusting the government and trusting media, but you still got to remember, 2 out of the 3 largest religious Facebook groups are ran by Russian bot farms, like troll bots. And there was another statistic on Twitter. They say up to 80% of the accounts are bots, like 80%. And you know, these people are just pushing misleading stuff, trying to push us farther and farther apart. And a lot
But
of
here's
people,
something scary, and that's all true. And that's what I mean by
yeah,
digging. Here's something
yeah,
scary and prophetic. This is from Ernest Hemingway. The first panacea of a mismanaged nation is inflation of the currency. The second is war. Both bring a temporary prosperity. Both bring a permanent ruin. Both are the refuge of political and economic opportunists. And he's right. And you know, that's exactly where we are going. Look at the political opportunists. Look at Nancy Pelosi. Look at the economic opportunists, the military industrial complex. Look at the inflation, printing more money in the last 4 years than in the history of this country. It did bring prosperity temporarily. And the amount of money that is being made by these corporations that provide or make military equipment, you know, yeah, there is, but we are on the road, if we continue down this path, to both political and economic ruin. And I hate to say that, but shit, man, he was right. And I think people need to take a step back and see things for what they really are. And I will be real and true and keep saying the same shit over and over and over again. And I'll keep adding new stuff to it, because if you don't see this as being a generational shift away from what always has been into what is going to be, you are really asleep, in my opinion. And that's with all due respect. And again, you know, I like the comments, and maybe any of you who take exception with anything I've said today, please put it in the comments, and I will not run from it. I will address it in our next podcast, and I will address them honestly and candidly. And if I'm wrong, I'll say it. I don't think I will be, because everything that I say is rooted in mathematics, economics, fact, and logic. Putting the dots together, that's supposition. What do I think will happen? You know, taking into consideration all of the facts, that's a guess. But everything else that I'm saying up to that moment is rooted in fact. And so let's talk about it. Let's have an open discussion. What made this country great is respecting differences of opinion. Mark Moss and I have become good buddies, and Mark understands gold, but he's a Bitcoin guy, and I understand Bitcoin better now because of my relationship with Mark. And most people would say, well, no, it's one or the other. No, it doesn't need to be. You should always listen to other viewpoints and understand it, because if you don't, you never grow. You learn more and more about less and less until you know everything about nothing. You become pigeonholed. and you should always listen respectfully to someone else. And that's what made this country great. Debate. It wasn't cancel culture in high school. It was debate, where you openly debate things and do so in a respectful, thoughtful manner. And that's how you grow as a person, as a nation, as a company, whatever. And that's what these conversations with you are all about. And I really enjoy them, and I hope people do too. So I welcome anyone that has anything that they would like to ask, whether it be pro or con or contrary to what I'm saying. Put them in the comments and let me address them next week.
Wow, this is probably the most important podcast that's ever hit the internet. Jeez, man, we talked about so much important stuff.
And it's one that I think both you and I feel passionate about.
Yeah.
And as we should, what goes around comes around in life. And I will tell you, that's as much my religion as anything, in that I get emotional and I say things sometimes I probably shouldn't say, but it comes from the right place. So excuse my profanity laced tirade. It comes from a place of caring and I'm trying to get my point across. So anyways, I've taken enough of your time today, and it's always a pleasure to be here with you. You are a class act, and someone that I know your daughter will grow up being very proud of, and I'm proud to work with you. So I hope you have a good rest of your day, you and everyone else out there, and I will look very forward to hopefully answering some questions and picking up where we left off next week.
All right, guys, I appreciate you so much for tuning in. Make sure you subscribe, as we are on the road to 100,000 subscribers. I will see you guys tomorrow. Peace.